Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bigger on the Inside, the New Who Doctor Who Watch Along podcast. Just a quick introduction for me this week, just to say I hope you enjoyed this interview with the fantastic Mr. Paul Cornell. Paul, you know him best for his creation of Bernice Summerfield, and then subsequently Wolsey the Cat, and his TV work from Father's Day in 2005 for the first series of Doctor Who, all the way up to the adaptation of his novel, Human Nature. Which was then split into two parts in 2007 for Human Nature and A Family of Blood. His last television work for Doctor Who, we speak about why that is, if there's any chance of Paul coming back anytime soon to work with Doctor Who, his history with Doctor Who from, DWM, Doctor Who magazines, the novelizations, and also his non-Doctor Who work, stuff like his Marvel stuff with Captain Britain, Superman, Batman, and Robin with DC Comics. So enjoy it. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you at the end.
I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous.
I hope the ears are a bit less conspicuous this time.
You might be a doctor, but I am.
I'm a doctor, but probably not the one who expected.
Absolutely fantastic.
All of time and space, everything that ever happened or ever will. Where do you want to start?
Doctor Who. We can't not really ignore the fact that you are... Would you say you're best known for writing for Doctor Who? Would you say that's a fair assumption?
I would. I sort of feel, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, because it's like a band having not really got past their first hit. I feel a bit like EMF.
Yeah. It's not a bad. I don't think it's there's nothing. It's a good first album.
But no, I'm certainly. It's still the first thing in the brackets on it when I have a little biog for something that's coming out. And sometimes Elementary goes first for some people these days, which is quite nice, but that's quite a long time ago as well. So, yeah.
Because obviously it's not just Doctor Who. There's, you've written for Batman, Robin, Wolverine, Superman, a lot of these Marvel and DC comics as well. When you're writing for really established characters that have a dedicated fan base, I imagine it's one part exciting, but also nerve-wracking at the same time, because you've got such an expectation to live up to, not just for fans, but also I imagine for yourself.
Oh, yes. I mean, you have to own and inhabit the characters, and you have to get past it, otherwise you couldn't do it. And certainly there are always editors and producers who are there to look after the characters and, won't let you do anything ridiculous. But still, there are lots of people who love these characters, and, you're very aware of not messing it up. I remember waking up to a tweet one day that said, "You ruined Batman and Robin all in block capitals." And I thought, that's a 60-year legacy. I'm not sure I ruined it, but
I think even if you just look at the movies, you go from Adam West to what Robert Pattinson's done. There's a nice bracket there for you to play within. I don't think it is possible to ruin it, is it really?
Yes. Also, I didn't ruin Doctor Who, so that's quite nice.
That's good. Yeah. Well, you've said it now, so we might as well start talking about it. You're talking there about characters. Obviously, you created a character of Bernice Summerfield. Was that that was originally for? Was that for the novels originally? Am I right in saying?
It was for the New Adventures, the Virgin books. They did a series of auditions, if you like. We were all encouraged to bring in a character who might be a companion, and they liked the look of Bernice.
What do you think it was about Bernice that the publishers really caught onto?
Oh, I think she was designed in opposition to a lot of established stuff. She was older than most companions at that point. She, with the Seventh Doctor having gotten larger, having gotten more cosmic, she was the one to prick his balloon. She would bring the domestic in, and I thought we had ventured too far beyond the domestic, and it was nice to have somebody who would reel it back in. And and puncture it. And I'm quite astonished that she's still with us. It's a small but dedicated following who have persisted for more than a quarter of a century. It's my teeny tiny IP, and you know, Big Finish license her off me, which is, I mean, you know, it's very kind of them to keep her going. But well, I say kind. I see the I see the ledgers of sales, and actually they do quite well out of her. So
that's always positive. I think it would be. You just mentioned there, like she's an older companion, and I'm thinking in my head, it's quite interesting that in the show we've seen the Doctor go from quite young with Matt Smith to then Peter Capaldi, but the companions tend to stay around the same age. There's a couple of exceptions when you look at characters like Graham and Catherine and Donna Noble, but they're normally like 20 teenagers sort of years. Do you think there's a chance that Russell's bringing in characters from the comics now in the 60th? Do you think there's a chance that we could possibly see someone like Bernice Summerfield or even Wolsey the cat pop up in future episodes of Russell's tenure?
Well, he would have to negotiate with me about that if she did. But I think it's really fascinating. I mean, you always want a spread of characters. You want somebody for the children to identify with, and so that's what the younger characters are there for. Yeah, I think Russell. Well, I think Chris has done really good things in terms of broadening that out. I like a TARDIS family.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it as well. I think it's comforting, I feel, almost.
And but as always, writing for Doctor Who, you're in conversation with this genre that is Doctor Who and only Doctor Who, and so each creator reacts to what came before, and so Russell will kick off in an entirely different direction. I think the use of DWM characters is fascinating.
I think it is exciting because I'm somebody who I merely evolve around the television stuff and a little bit of the Big Finish stuff, but the comics I've never really indulged that too much in. So it's almost like a whole new aspect of it is opening up to me, and by introducing it to the show, I therefore hope that makes it, not that it's not already accessible, but encourages more access to source material that's already out there.
Absolutely. I think I'd like to see characters like Shade from the Tides of Time, the Steve Parkhouse stuff. I think it's really interesting that Russell has done deliberately this time what happened to him by accident last time. That is to say, bring in a new Doctor really swiftly, almost immediately. I think it actually worked to the show's advantage last time, in a completely unexpected and surprising way, in that the energy kept going. You had another big development, another headline immediately.
Yeah, true.
And I think doing it deliberately, that's fascinating.
Are you looking forward to seeing what how Russell's going to handle Shooty? Do you? I suppose the question I'm kind of trying to get out of you here is: are we going to see any more Paul Cornell Doctor Who stories on our telly screens anytime soon?
Well, I mean, I would never say no, but at the same time, I'm not hunting for it, and I've had close approaches a few times. In fact, I think I'm possibly the only person to have got into script meetings with all of the showrunners thus far.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Show. Yeah,
and I got really close with Chris. I'm sure I can say this now. He was very lovely man and very, very kind about it, and we gave it a good shot. Let's see. If I am asked, I wouldn't say no, but I doubt I'll be asked.
Oh well, I as a fan, I very much doubt that you won't not be asked. I imagine that you will be asked at some point, because when we watched a couple of years back, we started watching them all in order and sort of reviewing the episodes and stuff like that. and we watched Father's Day and was blown away by it and could not wait for Human Nature and Family Blood to come around.
Oh,
And then we went on your TARDIS wiki, and we were like, "That's it. There's no more Paul Cornell Doctor Who stories coming up for it." We're like, "Well, what do we do now?" So, for our sake, at least, I do hope you do come back at some point.
well, I did. I mean, my whole Doctor Who work is quite a mammoth pile and stretches a long way. And I think I've covered it in just about every medium known. And, maybe not grand opera or sock puppets. But
that's it. That's the exclusive I was looking for today. Thank you very much.
And I made a conscious effort not to go back after a certain point. I mean, I went back for the 13th Doctor charity collection of the stuff I did for lockdown because I thought to myself, well, I've said I won't do any more professional Doctor Who, and we're not actually being paid for this. All our fees go to children in need. So I thought, well, fair enough. And I'd like to get that material out there on a more solid basis. But no, I kind of feel it would encourage me to be complacent. I do believe that I could probably get a Big Finish audio if I asked, a Doctor Who one. And that's a nice feeling if things ever get desperate. But I really want to be, and they won't. I'm really comfortable. But that's a bit of a decadent thing to say on my part, honestly. But I want to be in the ring and fighting, and I don't want the feeling of resting on my laurels. I want to be doing new things, and I want to be doing things that are difficult. Also one gets out of the way to let the kids have a go. It's really important. It's really important to let the new generation in. And, I'm not going to stick around keeping on holding down slots. I will, no disrespect to anybody who does that. We all need to make a living. But I don't need to do that. So I think some kid can have mine.
What's the point in having you all?
I feel like also maybe it's a case of if you have that itch of a story that you need to put out, then there's a drive to do it. But
unfortunately, my brain is still an engine for making Doctor Who stories.
Oh, is it indeed?
I've got I've got the ones that didn't quite make it to screen, which I haven't reused.
Okay.
So I've got about three. And three good Doctor Who ideas. That's that can go on forever.
One of your I recently rewatched Human Nature and Family of Blood, and the Chameleon Arch, which recently came back in a couple of Chibnall's episodes with the Fugitive Doctor. Was that your invention, that device, or was that something that Russell asked you to include? Because I suppose like the idea of the fob watch then carries on throughout that whole series.
Well, incredibly, we actually pay really close attention to who invented what because the merchandisers are interested. So he's got the Chameleon Arch. That was his idea. And I think, yes, the fob watch is mine. And the diary is mine as well. But I think, that's a really commercial way of looking at things. Certainly, the Chameleon Arch was his idea, and I think he had in mind the long-term use of it as well, because we aren't informed about the arcs when we write our scripts. For Father's Day, I didn't know what Bad Wolf was.
Okay.
And I'd noted the Bad Wolf graffiti in his scripts. And I said, do you want me to put some Bad Wolf graffiti in? And he just said yes.
Okay.
Without telling me anything more about it.
Was that you picking up on that could be something later on in the series?
Yes.
Or okay. Is it as a writer when you read someone else's scripts? Because obviously, when I first watched that, I didn't pick up on it until the big conclusion at the end of the series. But as a writer, do you often notice that is it quite hard to switch that bit of your brain off either when reading a script or watching TV?
Yeah. Oh, my wife hates this. I can't go to a movie without when I come out of it taking it apart. I mean, I take movies apart on I guess you'd call it a professional basis on my Hammer House of podcast with Elizabeth Miles.
Yeah,
and that's all about dissecting movies. But yeah, it takes a really good story to switch off that part of my brain.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of comes with the job. You get a sense of architecture about stories.
Yeah, I think I can sort of relate to you a little bit there because I just graduated from university in film studies, and for the last like 7 or 8 years, I haven't been able to watch anything really. There's the odd thing that pops up without sort of dissecting it or going, why did they linger on that prop for an extra 2 seconds? It's clearly a key prop. I must remember it for some reason. And then trying to pick out why I'm going to need to remember it later on.
Yep.
It must be quite nice though to have sort of like iconic sort of symbolism within Doctor Who. Like you got the watch and the diary. They're both quite, especially the watch is quite significant in the show's history. Yeah. It must be quite nice to sort of be able to sort of almost like a little tick and yeah, I did that sort of thing. That's mine.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, I should mention Julie Gardner, who it was a cricket ball for the longest time.
Oh wow!
And in the middle of a script meeting, Julie just stuck her head through the door and said, "Not a cricket ball, a fob watch. It opens, it closes." And then she just went out and closed the door again, and we were like, "Wow."
I was gonna ask, this is a slightly nerdy question. The sequence where the Doctor throws the cricket ball and everything falls apart and the baby is saved, was that a deliberate nod to Peter Davison's Doctor, or is this just a total coincidence?
It was a total. Well, I wouldn't say coincidence because one is obviously aware. But it's actually, I said, because I think it's a survival from the point where he had a cricket ball handy throughout because of that was the fob watch.
Okay.
So it's, I think that's the case.
Yeah, it would have been slightly less dramatic if we just thrown a watch.
yeah.
Across. That would have been slightly, yeah. Was there much creative freedom then when it comes to writing these scripts? Does I know with Human Nature it's a case of Russell approaching you going, would you like to adapt this? But with Father's Day, is it a case of him coming to you going, do you have any ideas? Or is it you going, I've got this idea, are you interested? How does that work? And then how does the actual narrative unfold?
There was a Bible about the first 13 episodes that Russell sent out to all of us writers. And we didn't initially know who was going to write what. And I saw the one which was a short paragraph just saying a Play for Today style episode with no monsters. Rose sees her dad being killed over and over and has to learn what he was really like. And I just thought, oh, that's me, isn't it? And it turned out it was. We had a huge amount of time to draft those scripts. Too long, too many drafts. It was grueling. Also time travel. I gave myself a time travel plot. I thought I'm going to have some monsters because this may be my only chance to write Doctor Who, and I'm going to make some monsters. And I was deliberately in conversation with the Star Trek episode, the City at the Edge of Forever, and because this is a take on that, but that goes a different way. And trying to make the time travel plot work just took so much time and so many diagrams on whiteboards, and it's and I'd originally set it in a pub, and Russell after a while said, let's move it to a church, and make a wedding, because that's a thing, an event that should be happening. And it's really give and take. This is showrunner and freelancer, this is the back and forth of it. Human Nature was much quicker, and all the better for it. I think we got lost in the woods in Father's Day. I find the fact that it doesn't have a time travel plot that works like clockwork. Really, we never got there. I think we never made it work like an equation.
Okay, I see what you mean. Do you think that was maybe because there was so much pressure riding on that first series to get it right that the extra time in hindsight was perhaps beneficial?
Yeah. I don't know. I think there is such a thing as too many drafts. I think if we'd gone with I don't know how other people feel about this. I think maybe just going on instinct. I don't know. I don't know at all. But anyway, it's not as if I'm displeased with the finished result. I think it's wonderful.
I totally know what you mean there. Like, I feel like there's only so much you can do before it's just nitty gritty for the sake of nitty gritty sake. I know when I did my short film for university, I spent maybe 3 months writing it and then we shot it. And even as we're shooting it, because you're there in the moment, you're changing little things about the story and dialogue and things like that. So perhaps there isn't the point of spending so much time in the office sat there writing if when you actually get on set, you're going to go back to page 1 anyway.
I mean, it makes emotional sense. And that's really all that matters. I think that it could have made time travel sense as well at the same time without losing that. That's the autistic part of my brain speaking. And, that will always be there. I always write too many scenes. I always, I need to see how a thing happened without letting the audience intuit it. So I'm actively fighting against my own autistic brain to be right.
So the character of Pete Tyler, how was that character already, like, how much involvement did you have on his characterization? Did Russell go, okay, he's a bit like this, he comes across like this, is this sort of bloke, or did you just write him as you saw fit?
Well, I think all I had for him was from the Bible, where it just sort of said he's not the hero Rose thought him as, and I ran with that, and I gave him the background of my dad actually, and gave him all the same jobs as my dad had, but my dad didn't notice at all, but not until he read my introduction to the script book, but. Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, it's hard trying to prize apart who did what after all this time. I mean, and also I feel slightly uncomfortable doing it because it's, I try and give credit where credit is due. And, like Russell wrote the line a lot of people like in Human Nature, the definition of the Doctor about, he's like fire, etc. So I always say that, it's I don't want to take credit for the things I did not do.
I remember seeing an interview with Moffat where he said, I'm very briefly paraphrasing, where I think he was asked a question of the difference of writing from Matt Smith to Capaldi. Was there much difference? And he said, not really. You kind of just write the Doctor as he is the Doctor. And I imagine for Capaldi's first series, you kind of just have to see where it goes throughout the series. But when you're adapting Sylvester McCoy to Tennant, was there much difference in the way you have to write the language?
I never get this. I think the Doctors all have a distinct tone of voice. I don't think it's one tone of voice at all. I think, and the first season of Capaldi, that doesn't sound anything like Matt Smith. You can't imagine Matt Smith doing that. I love the first season of Capaldi. It's, I think, my favourite modern season. So I very much write a characterized Doctor who has an individual voice. I know sometimes, that makes an actor chase a character. That is to say, if you wrote what for David Tennant, he would make it into what.
Yeah.
But no, I believe in. I think each individual Doctor is a different character. Honestly,
I remember when Big Finish now and again they opened they do a competition for budding writers to send in submissions with the chance of it becoming an audio adventure, and I gave it a shot. And I Tennant is my favorite Doctor, so I started writing for 10. But I couldn't find his voice, and I ended up writing for Matt because I found his voice was more accessible to me. Do you think when you're writing for Doctors, is there a Doctor that you can slip into more easily than others?
I could do Sylvester McCoy dialogue. That just comes very naturally.
There's a good rhythm to him, I feel.
Yes. And Tom Baker, I think I've sort of I've taught myself to write Tom because he's actually quite difficult to write. I think the hardest to grab is Troughton because so much is in the performance. Troughton, honestly, on screen could say just about anything because Troughton, the actor, could modulate whatever the dialogue was into, something that sounded Troughton-esque, if that makes any sense.
No, it certainly does, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, I've sort of, having had my writing formed from Doctor Who from an early age, I sort of have been schooled in the dialogue of all of them. And being a fan fiction writer, that's a good education in grabbing the speech patterns of licensed characters. It's something I still enjoy doing. The ability to write for an existing character is something I really enjoy.
Is there an existing character that you've got your eye on at the moment who you'd quite like to write for? You've kind of done them all.
No, I haven't. For the longest time, I've been trying to convince comic companies to let me do John Steed and Emma Peel.
Okay.
And it's been decades. I think, I would just like to write them in some medium before, I could do a Big Finish, but they're adapting the comic strips and I want to create my own plots. And, oh dear. So,
Big Finish seems like a good a ground for writers who really want to indulge themselves in existing properties. Like even stuff like Thunderbirds, that just seems like amazing fun to write that.
That must be so great. I really have loved their UFO and Space 1999 series.
Yeah, my friend Harrison is a big Finish fan. He kind of got me into it a little bit, and I'm quite picky with what I listen to. I don't know why. I feel like it's maybe just part of my brain just can't. I find it difficult to switch. I'm a very visual person. I love my podcasts and stuff like that. But when writing for Big Finish or audio in general, do you have to change your style of writing, like the character dialogue? Do you have to change it because you are so reliant on sort of the dialogue of the characters and the sound design?
Yeah. There are all sorts of things about writing for audio that are different. I mean, you're going to go for longer scenes for a start because the mind of the listener needs to grasp that they are in a place, and it takes a little longer to arrive mentally and exit mentally from an audio scene. Fast cutting is really, I wouldn't say it's impossible. It might be quite difficult on audio. Of course, there are all of the usual. I think what's really interesting is first-time audio writers tend not to appreciate how much visual stuff they can do. And they tend to emphasize the need to describe visuals. I listen to a lot of modern audio drama because I'm a huge. I do a blog every Sunday about forthcoming geek radio delights on the BBC. There's always about 20 things that geeks might like coming up on BBC Speech Radio, and so there's in modern audio drama, there's an awful lot of they expect the listeners to get stuff from context from very good audio engineers, a lot more than a writer might expect. So I still find I wrote a serial for Radio 4 based on Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell late last year, and actually it was this year. I'm not sure. Anyway, I was getting dialogue cut even now because I was over-explaining. And, there's very much that temptation to say, stop or I will shoot you with this gun I'm holding in my left hand.
I think maybe one of the issues I had when I tried that Big Finish thing was like there was a lot of dialogue of someone going, "Okay, Doctor, can you just pass me this?" And then, "Okay, do you know what?" Because you feel like you have to. I imagine because if you were reading it in a book, you don't have the sound effects of the Sonic going off or something like that. So you kind of it took a little while to screw back into that. But that's really interesting. I know I'm only gonna say one more thing, which is I'd just like to thank you for the amount of Doctor Who fans who now come up to me. And once I tell them my name is Tim, call me Timothy Tim after Tennant in Human Nature, Family and Blood. So thank you very much for that little accolade.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I wrote that. I think that might be David.
Well, next time if you ever talk to him, from me.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad that that's. It's lovely how Doctor Who follows us around in our lives, isn't it? Yes.
Well, there you have it. That was the fantastic Paul Cornell there. Big thank you to Paul for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it so much. We've been trying to get Paul on the show for a long time and very graciously agreed to come on and join us for this anniversary celebration. The interview was recorded in April of this year, so quite a while ago for you guys. I appreciate that. So maybe some of the stuff we spoke about had already been announced or revealed. But I think there were some exciting bits in there, when we look at the fact that Paul almost returned with Chris Chibnall. That's kind of interesting. I wonder what that story could have been there. So yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to Paul once again for joining. Really, really appreciate it. Such a lovely guy, very genuine. Gave us a lot of his time. So thank you very much. And don't forget, if you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from, don't forget to leave us a review. It really helps. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. We've got some videos coming out all of this month to celebrate the return of Doctor Who and also to celebrate the 60th anniversary. So enjoy. We've got some exclusive content coming up. We've got some more interviews, some games. We've got lots of stuff for you to really get involved with. And also head over to our socials. Everything's linked below. You know what to do. So thank you very much, and I will see you next time.
Make sure you subscribe to the official Bigger on the Inside podcast.